This is episode 293 of Mitolife Radio. I'm Matt Blackburn, and today I'm welcoming back Dr. Robert Selig to the show. Dr. Robert Selig runs a practice out of Chicago where he focuses on hair tissue mineral analysis, or HTMA, with his patients, and also uses other things like chiropractic therapy, PEMF, Rife, sauna, sound therapy, massage therapy, and as we're going to talk about in this show, homeopathy, which my mother raised me with. She would always give me homeopathic remedies as I was growing up. And so she kind of planted that seed for me to now finally get into it at the age of 37. And also speaking with people like Robert, I've been inspired to play around with it more. So in this episode, Robert talks about the three aspects of homeopathy, including like cures like, minimum dose, and the law of cure. He explains the different potencies that you can get with homeopathic remedies, why homeopathy is energetic medicine, and why he likes combining that with the physical work. We get into the 12 tissue salts. I talk about my recent experience, and Robert makes recommendations on how I could make it more focused. He talks about where to start with homeopathy, why we should have a emergency Mars kit, as he calls it. And possibly my favorite part of the show, he talks about the astrology connection with homeopathy. And specifically, we just focus on the sun sign. I recently turned 37. I'm a Virgo sun. And the wild part is the cell salt that's specific to Virgo is Kali sulf, and it's specifically for the skin. Largely it rules, as Robert says, communication, digestion, and the skin. And that's why I got into health, was skin issues, acne and eczema. So what a coincidence that completely lined up. I really just love listening to Robert speak. His philosophy on health, it's very balanced, it's very comprehensive, it brings in the energetics, and he's open. He's just an awesome practitioner, and I love to hear him speak, and more so love speaking with him on the podcast. So enjoy the show. Here is Dr. Robert Selig. All right, we are here with the incredible Robert Selig. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's really fun to chat with you. I was actually, I think it was last week, I was laying on my plasma device or something and listening to your show with Matt Kaufman, and it was really good. And I always like listening to your interviews. I think I heard your show on the Crow podcast. That was excellent. And it's really impressive. Like each podcast I listen to with you, usually people just repeat the same information every show, but you actually like say something different every one. I don't know how you do it, but it's always entertaining, and I'm always taking notes, so I appreciate it.
I'm sure I repeat myself because everyone ends up repeating themselves because we're talking about, toxic metals, we're talking about minerals. So everything's kind of revolve around those themes. And then the nuances as we look into energy-based medicine, as we look into detox strategy. So I probably will repeat myself.
Well, it's good though, because I know personally I need to hear things multiple times to like get it through my skull, right? So it helps because
repetition, the mother of learning.
Positive programming, right? That we're doing here. So
but it's always good. I kind of like when I do my meditation, I do a standing qigong meditation every day, and in one of the postures, I go through the whole periodic table, at least up to 34 elements. So I just repeat them just to keep it fresh in my brain.
That's awesome. Really cool. Well, highly recommend if this is your first time hearing Robert, go back and listen to our first show because that was really fun. I think we mainly focused on zinc and copper, but the whole mineral matrix, as you talk about in depth. But this show, I'm excited to speak with you about homeopathy because my mom actually raised me on homeopathy. I think her big tools in the arsenal were fresh aloe vera. I was raised in Southern California, so we had tons of endless aloe vera plants because I had eczema. And she was rubbing the aloe on and giving me homeopathic therapies for allergies. I had a pretty severe dust allergies. And looking back, it was probably a zinc deficiency that I had my whole childhood. But it's really fascinating. I mean, you talk about how you couldn't practice mineral balancing without homeopathy, right?
Absolutely. Homeopathy is really, it's a modality that stands the test of time. And basically, it's a branch of alchemy. So when we understand, I'm always talking about alchemy, and I kind of ad nauseum keep talking about alchemy, but alchemy is the royal science, and alchemy goes back to ancient Egypt. And that's where we get Hermes, Trismegistus, Thoth, Mercury. Those are all AKAs of Hermes. And his biography is lost in the dark annals of our history, so we don't really know exactly his whole biography, but alchemy is such a beautiful science, and homeopathy is a branch of alchemy, and that's where, when we look at the phrase similia similibus curanta, that means like cures like. That's coming from Paracelsus, who was the great alchemist, and Paracelsus would take years to make a remedy. He would make a whole spargeric remedy based on patterns on the moon, the planets. If you wanted a Mars remedy, it would be started on a Tuesday and then goes through the whole process. And they would use every aspect of the Mars plant, to make the remedy. So they would use absolutely everything through many complicated processes to capture the entire essence of the plant to make a spargeric remedy, which could take a year. Samuel Hahnemann, who is the founder of modern-day homeopathy, understood alchemy, and what he did was, using that same phrase, like cures like, he made a homeopathic remedy in basically one day. So he became the greatest healer of our planet. He truly is one of the giants in healing. So love everything that Samuel Hahnemann and homeopathy offers to mankind, because it's using some of the safest stuff. It's energy medicine that you can give to a baby, you can give to a pregnant woman, you can give to anyone without having to worry about side effects. Now, there may be some aggravations, but an aggravation usually will be we have to understand the three pillars of homeopathy is like cures like, minimum dose, and the laws of cure. Now, the laws of cure is coming from Constantine Herring, who was he's coined as the father of American homeopathy, but he was an astute student of Samuel Hahnemann back in the 1800s, and he started off trying to prove that homeopathy was bullshit. He came from a strong medical establishment. He was a surgeon. He was a hardcore scientist, and his professor told him, go attack homeopathy, study it, and just prove that it's just bullshit. And what happened was, with Dr. Herring, he was a surgeon, so he was working on some cadaver, and he cut his finger, and his finger became gangrene, and the option was cut the finger off, and he didn't want to go that route. And after studying with Samuel Hahnemann and learning about homeopathy, he was given one homeopathic remedy, Arsenicum alba, and it cured his finger. A complete cure. Never had to get his finger cut off, and then he became the father of American homeopathy. So again, the three principles, like cures like, minimum dose, and the laws of cure, are the three pillars of what homeopathy stands on. Did I lose you on that, or did that kind of make sense?
I'm following. Yeah, it helps that I take notes too while you're talking. So the laws of cure, did you break that down yet? Or what?
No, I haven't. So when we think of Western allopathic medicine, its suppression drives illness deeper into the body. So everything we've been suppressed, the antibiotics. So when you look at all their medicines, it's all antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, antihistamines, all working against the vital force. And that drives the illness deeper and deeper into the body. And medicine calls that symptom shift, symptom displacement. So all you're doing is moving a acute, it could be an acute, a subacute, a chronic, and every time you take a suppressive medication, you're driving it deeper into the body. So in the laws of cure, when we give you a homeopathic remedy, you're going to see that it's going to move the illness from the head down. It's going to focus on, removing the illness from the more vital organs to the less vital organs. So brain, heart, kidneys, lungs, liver, it's taking it away from that, moving it to the more superficial things. That's why when you give someone a homeopathic remedy for a certain condition, then you may get an aggravation of a lesser organ like a skin flare-up or something like that, because you always want to move, you want to drive the illness out of the more pertinent organs, brain, heart, liver, kidneys, lungs. And as you drive it out, now you're really reverse ordering the disease process. So that's part of the laws of cure. So like if a kid had an ear infection and you give the child a homeopathic remedy for the ear infection, then he takes the remedy and then the ear infection clears up beautifully. But what may reoccur is now an old eczema may show up. So now we focus on the vital forces, now saying now we have to work on the eczema that was never cleared, because probably that childhood eczema was suppressed with, cortisone and inhalers, and that drove it deeper into the body. And then all of a sudden the kid has this horrible ear infection. And then we give the homeopathic remedy based on like cures like, laws are similar. And so, and that may provoke an old disease that was never cured from the beginning, and that would be the reoccurring of the eczema. And it won't come back as aggressive as the eczema initially was, but it will show its face. Now we, as a homeopath, now we have to put our attention to, now we have to work on fixing the skin issue. And then as we're doing that with homeopathy, we still got to work on foundational basic principles, because probably that skin condition appeared in the first place because of a zinc deficiency from the get-go. So we're always working with the vital force, seeing what needs to be healed. And so as we come in with homeopathic remedies, we see the next layer that we have to address. And that's kind of how the laws of cure work. Any questions on that?
No, that was awesome. And just kind of taking a step back, the way I perceive homeopathy is like our supplements that we take every day, those are extracts and concentrates. And homeopathy is kind of going the opposite direction, right? With dilution instead of concentration.
Right. So in homeopathy, you'll see, it comes in different potencies. So we got the X potencies, the C potencies, we got the M potencies, the LM potencies. So the X, like a 6X is a tissue salt. The higher you go, the more potent the remedy. And so the thing about homeopathy, through the potentization of a remedy, and you can make a remedy from anything in this universe, from the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom. You can make a remedy from anything in this universe. And through the homeopathic preparation of a remedy, through the art of succussion and percussion and, freeing the information from matter. So when you start with the crude plant, we'll say a plant, for example, if you have the plant, let's say it's rust, tox, poison ivy. If you have poison ivy, you're gonna free the information in the plant through the alchemical preparation of potentizing the remedy. And what is contained is the information. Information is non-physical. And so that information has to put on a physical carrier. That could be a sucrose pill, a lactose pill, could be put in an alcohol tincture. But what we care about is the information. Information can pass the blood-brain barrier to affect consciousness with the similar remedy. So the snake that bites you is the same venom that will heal you, but that venom is now put into a minimum dose that has been alchemically transmuted into such a minuscule amount beyond Avogadro's number. So science will say the hoax has been exposed. There's nothing in the remedy. That's exactly the point. We care about the information. Information is always non-physical. So when you think of information, if I'm an artist and I want to paint a picture, that the initial painting starts as information in my brain. It's non-physical. Then it takes paint and canvas and the stroke of the brush to bring the information to physical form through the painting. So homeopathy doesn't care about the crude dose. It cares about freeing the information that's captured in the milk pellet or whatever that we take under our tongue, and the information affects consciousness because the sick man is lacking the information that caused the disease. Hopefully that made sense.
That was great. Yeah. Is it a matter of like, I know since I've been into health, last 14 years or whatever, 15 years, I've noticed there's people that focus mostly on the energetic aspect with Reiki and past life regression and whatever, hypnosis or there's also on the other hand, people that are very physical and it's only the physical treatments, but it's kind of like doing both at the same time. You're going to be more effective in the healing process. Is that correct?
Exactly. So that's been my whole goal because I'm in the middle. I've always said that healing is an art and a science. So we have the science guys and they become so pedantic and so boring and scholarly and they're just bean counting you to death, understand. And that's good stuff. I don't want to exclude that because there is importance in understanding biochemical actions in the body, but the art to healing is the mystery, and that's where we want that alchemy. We want to understand the energetics behind what is the symptom trying to teach us. Every symptom tells a story, and it's the task of the patient to unveil what that symptom is trying to teach us. The homeopathic remedies help us to open up these layers so we can start to get to the core of what the symptom represents in the body, because there's no meaningless illness, disease, or symptom. They all are there as teachers. And that's a real hard thing for modern man to grasp because we're just focusing on let's attack it, let's fight it, let's kill it, let's antibiotic it. And so the homeopathists say, let's work with the vital force. The vital force is that body's innate intelligence that knows when we get sick that the body is doing its best as an adaptation to clear out whatever toxin, debris, whatever virus, pathogen. So the symptom is not an enemy. A symptom is an adaptation that we have to work with. So the first thing the sick man needs to do is to be at peace with your symptom, not to fight it, but to understand it. As we understand it, then we can transmute it. And through the transmutation of the illness, then, that's where the homeopathic stuff comes in. But we live in an age where we are so toxic, with the gazillion chemicals and metals. That's changed the playing field. That's why a homeopathic remedy just won't cut the mustard today. It will certainly help as we go through all the layers of adaptations, but we still have to do the physical work. We still got to do the detox work. And that's why it's the merging of the alchemy and the science to come together to focus on a real healing modality. So we're not just, bean counting and just becoming so pedantic and scholarly in assessing the biochemistry, because the mystery in biochemistry, we don't know even how an electron moves. So we have to take a step back and know that there's a vital force and we have an innate intelligence on our body, and the homeopathy works with that innate intelligence. And then we do the other half of the equation, which is the physical work. So my goal has been to merge those two worlds, to bring them together. And that's where you're going to get a real healing art and science.
It's great. Would you say that one the physical work or homeopathy, that one of them is more effective at kind of moving trapped emotions? Because I notice a lot of people in the health space, like they might be on point with their supplements and their biohacking and whatever and their routine, but they might be holding on to anger or grief or shame or whatever the emotion. And that could eventually cause physical, like serious, deadly disease, right? But do you think they're both kind of equal at freeing up emotions that people might be holding on to? Because I know there's tons of studies on zinc and schizophrenia, helping with mental, neurological stuff, so.
This is where I love the high potency homeopathy. To get to in the minefield of the psyche, we have to detonate these bombs that are going off: our anger, our guilt complexes, our fears, our phobias, our sexual guilts. All these themes will eventually manifest in the body as some physical disease. So that's why the symptom isn't the bad guy. The symptom is telling us a story. So when we come in with a high potency homeopathic remedy, that gets to the deeper emotional layers better than anything. But that still doesn't give us an excuse to not do the detox, to not balance the minerals. We still got to work on all that stuff while we're being able to diffuse in the minefield of the psyche what bomb we have to, diffuse so it doesn't explode and cause, the belligerence, the anger, the guilt complexes that become the symptoms later in life.
That's awesome. Well, so how long have you been into homeopathy? I haven't asked that question yet. Like when did you start playing around with it?
So I graduated chiropractic school in 1999, and in 2000, I started studying with Dr. Robin Murphy, who was probably probably the premier homeopathic doctor in North America, who just recently passed away. So he was my teacher, and boy, I used to go to Virginia where he had his practice, and we would stay over his house and study homeopathy for weekends on end. And we would always get into arguments. I was telling him he still needed minerals. He goes, "No, I don't want to take these minerals. I got my homeopathic remedies." I kept on arguing that you still have to do detox. He said, "No, the homeopathic remedies are going to, do the detox." I said, you got to do saunas, you got to do. So we would argue endlessly about the stuff I was doing, he was against, but I was always for the stuff he was doing because he was a genius in homeopathy, but his myopia, he didn't look at the minerals in crude dose. He didn't look at the detoxification process. And so he was always against me. Now, I believe he died a little too young. He was in his early mid-70s, I think, when he died. With his knowledge and always preaching longevity and qigong and all that good stuff, I thought he would have been living a little bit longer, but I think, I don't know what took him out. I never got the whole story, but he did end up getting COVID and he died right around the whole pandemic time. So I don't know what he did. I don't know how he handled it, but we were always in a disagreement what I was doing and not incorporating, the crude doses of minerals, not incorporating the detoxification in diet and lifestyle. So he talked a lot about that, but he didn't actually implement that in his daily practice. But brilliant homeopath.
Have you seen in your practice, like people that you work with, not having the homeopathics and not seeing too much emotion in their healing, and then adding in the homeopathy and then seeing massive improvement?
Yeah, the first goal is we got to get people to first base. That's the first step, because so many people are so broken from all the suppression. Every time we've had an earache, a throat ache, this or that, we've used suppressive medication, just driving it deeper. And then they're an adult and all of a sudden they want to start getting healthy because they're sick of feeling sick. And then we will come in with tissue salts to start as we build up the mineral grid. So we got to build them up slowly. And then at some point in time, they're going to hit a roadblock where the anger percolates or their guilt complexes percolate or some emotional theme that was never dealt with is now holding a charge. So that's usually when we'll come in with a homeopathic remedy to help placate whatever that symptom is, to help work through it. But you also have to work through it with talk therapy, with journaling, with some other modality to help process that stuck emotion. The homeopathic remedy will help open up that layer to see it, to see what it is we need to see. But we still got to process it and work through it. And so the homeopathic remedy helps to open up the layers that have been kind of cemented into us. And that's part of why you may see a calcium shell. A calcium shell on a hair tissue analysis, those are usually the suppressed emotions, whatever the trauma was, we have to put up a wall to protect ourselves. Now as an adult, we have to break that shell down. As we break that shell down, those emotions are going to percolate to the 10th degree. And that's where the homeopathic remedies are beautiful for helping to kind of placate the aggravation of an emotion.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm still wrapping my head around the 12 tissue salts, and there's books on it that I was showing you before we hit record, and those are usually the ones you start with, right? And then you can get more advanced with other ones if you want.
Yeah, I say the best place to start is start with the 12 tissue salts, learn about those, because that's going to be the building block for many, many homeopathic remedies down the road. But also understand we have acute situations. This is another reason why I love homeopathy, because what happens if you're on a program, you're doing mineral balancing, you're doing detox, but yet someone in your family dies? So now we have an emotional aggravation. What happens if you're in a car accident and you get, you break an arm, or you need some stitches or whatever, or you sprain your ankle, or you fall off your bike? So I always say that we got to learn emergency remedies for homeopathy. So if you touch the hot stove and you have a nice blistering, wound, maybe you don't need to go to the emergency room, but you're still in horrible pain. Any burn will hurt like hell, but it may not be that 3rd degree burn where you have to go to the emergency room, but a homeopathic remedy will take that pain away within minutes. And then we've all heard of arnica. Arnica is great for any trauma. So every household should have a high potency of arnica and a 200 to a 1 hem potency for any trauma. And that could be physical trauma and emotional trauma. And so you start the case off with a dose of arnica for any 911 trauma. And so whether it's a broken bone, whether it's a sprained ankle, you may start with arnica, but you'll have to come in with other remedies, seeing what is the next layer. But we may have food poisoning, so we need a food poisoning remedy. We may be on a healing journey, and then we go out celebrating a friend's birthday, and we may drink a little too much. So maybe we need a hangover remedy. So we have to be able to adjust to life and to come in with remedies in emergency situations, from traumas to overindulgence to burns to old infections propping up. So instead of having someone suffer, you come in with an acute emergency remedy to help simplify the healing process tenfold, just by giving someone a homeopathic remedy. And then once that's cleared up, and then we get back on the program, do the detox, do the minerals, and then we keep the healing, the vital force moving in the right direction. Because the homeopath is always looking at the vital force. Where is that vital force going? So we have to see, are they heading in the right direction, or are they going in the wrong direction? And so we have to be able to have eyes to see when someone's really getting worse, or it's just a healing reaction, it's an aggravation, it's a Hertz reaction. So we got to be able to handle these reactions, because even on a mineral balancing program, you're doing the detox, everything's going fine. Then all of a sudden, that headache that you had as a child starts to perk up. Now we got to be able to deal with the headache. So we come in with homeopathic remedies for the headache based on like cures like with the minimum dose, understanding the laws of cure and how we approach each individual patient to whatever is happening on their healing journey. That's why I love homeopathy in conjunction with using mineral balancing and detoxification, putting those two worlds together for real healing modalities.
I definitely need to learn about the first aid stuff because it was a couple weeks ago, I got my worst wasp sting while I was on a hike on my new mountain. I was walking around in the forest and they've been really bad this summer. And it hit right on my knuckle on my hand. And it was the worst sting I've ever experienced. I've been stung by a bee in my neck. Not as bad. Something about it hitting the knuckle. It was really painful. And for years, I've been using colloidal silver. And so I just bought I have a colloidal silver gel on my first aid cabinet. And I applied that. And that seemed to help a lot. And then ozonated olive oil. I used both of those kind of for different situations. But yeah, I definitely need to get into the insect bite and sting homeopathics.
When you think of these insect stings, like the honeybee the homeopathic remedy is apis, made from the honeybee. So when you get bit by the bee, that's going to cause redness, swelling, heat, inflammation. There may be some burning pain, some stinging pains. So understanding the like cures like. So maybe it's not the bee that bit you, maybe it's another insect that bit you. Apis will work, but apis will work if you get hives. Apis may be the indicated remedy. If you get an allergic reaction, apis may be the remedy, like cures like. It can also work for a tonsillitis and a conjunctivitis based on if you have the redness, the swelling, the inflammation, the burning and stinging pains, then apis would be the similar remedy, the similium, that will help placate the symptom so you don't have to suffer. And of course, the colloidal silver and everything else, nothing wrong with that. I will come in with everything in any acute situation, but I'll always come in with one remedy in potency, in a homeopathic potency, while we may do, we're worried about an infection, so we put a little colloidal silver on, maybe we put some creams and whatever to make it feel better. So yes, we do all that while we come in with homeopathic acute remedy. So I would say when you learn homeopathy, I call it a 911 emergency Mars kit. That emergency Mars kit is for all trauma. You fall off your bike, you're in a car accident, you get food poisoning, you get hungover, someone in your family dies, so now you have that grief of never well since the death of a loved one. We can go through losses and depression. So we have these acute remedies to help pick up the vital force so we can weather the storm to get to the next phase of our healing.
How do you determine which potency to use? Because I know earlier you were talking about 6x and I think there's 12x and it keeps... Do you start at a low potency and you go more potent, or do you kind of go off how resilient the person is?
See, that's a great question, and that's like the big, stigma in homeopathy. What potency do you give someone? For an acute emergency situation, I'm coming in with a high potency. So you told me that, you got punched in the eye, you got a black eye. I'm coming in with arnica and a 200 or a 1M potency because arnica is beautiful for that bruising and all that stuff. And so I will definitely give you a high potency. Then to support that, I may give you a 30C, daily until I see that inflammation coming down. Now, if you start to get some photophobia and some headaches, now we have to look at other remedies to see. But I always start the case with a high potency in an emergency situation. In a chronic situation, I'm going to go with lower potency, build up the vital force with the lower potency, so the tissue salts are the lowest potency. That's why I said I always want to build up the mineral grid. So I start with the tissue salts in that 6x potency. Then for some chronic situation, we have this chronic, every month this woman gets a headache. Every month, headache, PMS comes on, right around the menstrual cycle, that migraine kicks in. So now I'm going to give them a homeopathic remedy based on the laws of similar, like curing like. So I find that homeopathic remedy that's going to address the mentals, the physicals, and the whole constitution of the person in more of a lower potency. probably anything from a 12C to a 30C, maybe one dose every third day, maybe every day, depending on it. And then we evaluate with each cycle, did the headaches go away? Is the vital force perking up? Are they sleeping better? Are their moods better? So that's how we analyze the vital force. We're always looking at sleep and mood. Mentals are a big one. So that's why in the laws of cure, we want to take it from here down here. We want to take it from the center out to the periphery. So we want to get away from the more vital organs and take it more to the exterior. So as someone that comes with severe depression and, low self-esteem, we give them a homeopathic remedy. We build them up with probably like a 30C potency. And then all of a sudden their mentals improve. They're not, they have more energy, more zest for life. Their self-confidence is perked up. But then all of a sudden that old arthritic knee kicked in. So the head cleared up. But then we see this arthritic knee that maybe they were taking Advils and steroids to fix that. So now we have to put the vital force on fixing that old arthritic knee as the main symptom of depression and low self-esteem, improved dramatically. And now we got to deal with this arthritic knee.
Wow. Awesome stuff. I was going to save this for later, but I'm really curious your answer. So, I know usually homeopathy comes in the little lactose little beads, basically, that dissolve in your mouth. And I'm a big device guy, technology. I love it, all the health tech. I'll try it all. And over the years, I've experimented with Rife, which I think you're familiar with.
Love Rife.
When I was in Sedona, my friend and I have a funny story where someone took us in their house and we felt like we were drowning underwater with their frequency machine. They had blasting in the attic. we had to get out of the house because we started to get like a pounding headache and just felt like really bad. So frequencies are very powerful. And I know there's companies over the years that basically, they say you don't have to buy homeopathic remedy. You could just imprint from a software, digitally into, say, water, and it'll hold it in the hydrogen bonds of the water, and you never have to buy another homeopathic thing. Have you experimented with that? Do you find it's less effective than the physical homeopathic, little beads that you take and just your general thoughts?
I know some homeopaths that use that, but that's not me because I'm not technical. I'm a mess. I don't know how to make anything. I don't know how to fix anything. So I know where my talents lay, and it's not in making remedies. So I find good companies that make the highest quality homeopathic remedies, and I procure those remedies and prescribe those remedies. But to answer your question, yes, I've heard of that. Yes, they're just as valid. I just don't work with it, so I can't really comment on it.
Makes sense. Yeah. I've been trying like multiple different brands of. I just got a cell salts combination, and I've been taking three of each cell salt every day, once a day, and I'm just kind of shotgunning it. Like I always, just very experimental. I just dive in. What's going?
Which three are you taking?
I'm sorry, what's
Which
that?
Which 3 tissue salts are you taking?
I'm taking all 12. So it's 6X of, calcifluor, calcifos, calsulf. I'm probably butchering how you pronounce it. Fairphos, calimur, califos.
You're taking all 12 of the cell salts. That's like a bioplasm.
Yep. Yeah, I'm taking them separately. So it ends up being, whatever 3 times 12 is 36, I think, if my math is right. But that's
in one pill, it has all 12 in it, correct?
No, yeah, it's individual. Yeah, so each one would be, I'm taking out of 12 different bottles.
Okay. I would focus on, that's like, if you're a chef and you know this dish needs four spices, if you add more spices, what are you going to do to the dish? You could ruin it. Okay. Now, if your body just needs magphos, iron phos, calc phos, and nat myrrh, you focus on those 4 tissue salts. You save the other ones when you need them. So if your body says, let's say I'm having some cramping in my calves or my toes, I'm getting some cramps. So we're giving you the mag phos, the calcium phos, and maybe you have a little anxiety. So maybe we're giving you the potassium phosphate and maybe silica because of connective tissue. So those would be the 4 remedies I would prescribe based on your symptoms. This is why I would say learn what each one of those 12 remedies does. Know the basic gist of mag phos for any type of cramping thing. So when you see a woman who has unbearable uterine contractions during her cycle, where she's bent over double in horrible pain, feels better with heat, with a hot water bottle or a heat pack on it, then we know mag phos is the indicated remedy for that. So we know that mag phos will absolutely be one of the cell salts that really will work. And when someone's having those period cramps, you take 10 pellets of the mag phos, put it in some water, warm water, and sip that. That will work better than any Advil, Midol, Tylenol without the chemical side effect of those drugs. You're using the mag phos. But then maybe there's other symptoms that woman may have. So then you find out what the other symptoms may be. So then as a tonic to build up the constitution of the patient, you give her the mag phos, the calcium phosphate, the silica, or maybe she's anemic, so you throw in the iron phosphate. So instead of just random taking the machine gun approach, have more precision, know what you're giving so the remedy will work. So if you take all 12, some of that can cancel out the other remedy. So I would say, use that 3-4 harmonics, 3 remedies or 3 tissue salts or 4 tissue salts at a time. And then you can have all 12 in the background. And if something comes up, let's say you're on a plane and you get your air canal is blocked, then you come in with Kali myrrh. Beautiful for opening up the eustachian tube. So you don't get that blocked air that can drive you crazy. So you can use that tissue salt, for a couple weeks prior to going on a plane if you're susceptible to that, eustachian tube locking up and causing that air to become painful and just aggravating. So we need to know how to use these tissue salts so we're not just magically taking all 12. Like I said, if the chef adds too many spices into this amazing award-winning dish that requires 4 spices, now you start adding 7 spices, 8 spices, 12 spices, you destroy the dish. Same thing, same principle kind of applies.
Yeah, I didn't know that they could cancel each other out because my understanding was that the body will just use what it needs because it's energy-based. So if it doesn't need it, it'll just pass through. But that's fascinating.
There is truth in what you're saying. I'm over-exaggerating my point so to make you focus on what your body needs to save the other remedies when you really need it. So that's why you're listening to what your body is telling you. That's why I say, learn the 12 tissue salts. Know what calc fluor is. Know what calcium phosphate is. Know what calcium sulfate is. So you know the calcium family. And then out of those calcium families, maybe it's a deposit. So you can have, calcium deposits causing, anything when you see, pigeon toes, knock knee, kyphosis, lordosis, dowager's hump, bunions and Heberdine's nodes, all these calcium deposits. Then you're going to come in with calcium fluoride, tissue salt number 1. You're going to start doing that. Every day, you're going to take the calc fluor to help break up these calcium deposits. Now, if you needed more nutrition for the bones, then it's calcium phosphate. It's more metabolically active, where calcium fluoride is more isolated for certain bone diseases, but calcium phosphate is working on the energy in the bone marrow of calcium and phosphate for bone nutrition. So that's why we want to be able to know what each of these remedies is doing, so we have more precision medicine, not guessing, not just taking everything, taking the kitchen sink. We want to just know what we're taking And that's how the remedies are working. We always have to work for the remedy, whether it's a mineral, whether it's a physical mineral, a vitamin, or a homeopathic. We always have to ask our guiding spirits, whatever you believe in, whatever angel, God force, whatever you believe in, you always want to ask for help when you take the remedy. So you're working for the remedy. You're not just popping pills. You're energetically connecting to the remedy you're taking. Therefore, you need to know what you're taking.
So with HTMA, the big four are calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. And it's interesting because with homeopathy, like you mentioned, the calcium family, and then there's iron, which I guess is the fair, and then there's mag, silica. But what is nat and kali? What do those stand for?
So natrum is sodium.
Okay.
So nat mur, muraticum is chloride. So nat mur is sodium chloride. The homeopaths knew hundreds of years ago that sodium chloride, nat mur, would be the most prescribed homeopathic remedy in today's world because they knew we were processing the salt, and we knew that we were creating this white garbage stuff, the white salt, the umbrella salt, that processed salt would cause a major problem in our physiology. And nat mur is one of the most beautiful remedies we have, and it's a kidney remedy. So it's the water element. It's the water mover. So it moves the water, the fluids in our body. So if we have some pitting edema in our calves, or we get bloated in our gut or in our face or under our eyes, or the other extreme, complete dryness. So we either have too much sodium or we have too little sodium. So that means nat mur is the water regulator. So it's acting as an adaptogen, working with, consciousness to direct the body. If we have too much water, it's going to help the kidneys excrete it out. If we have too little water, it's going to help the body reabsorb it. And that's the energy of nat mur. So natrum muraticum, then we have natrum phosphoricum, and we have natrum nat sulf. That's sulfur. So if we have a lot of liver stuff, think sulfur, all the sulfation. So whenever there's a sulfur end of a remedy, calc sulf, sodium sulf, potassium sulf, the sulfur part is really part of working the liver, and each remedy is going to have a different aspect of working with the liver energy. So it could be a potassium in the liver, a sodium in the liver, and a calcium in the liver, depending on, according to the laws of similar, which remedy we need.
Wow.
That was winded too.
That was great. Yeah, this morning while I was eating my breakfast, I was listening to fascinating, I think it was 20 minutes or so that you did just on the silica cell salt and how that's responsible for grit, as you called it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So if you're lacking grit.
Beautiful, beautiful remedy. It's the homeopathic surgeon. It helps remove foreign debris. So it can remove splinters and glass and stuff like that. But it also gives grit, emotional grit and physical grit to the body. So we know that silica and the connective tissue stuff. So silica is a big, big standalone remedy. Love silica. So that is a powerful homeopathic tissue salt. That's one I've been taking daily pretty much the last 5 years. I've been taking silica daily because I've always had weak connective tissues my entire life. So I'm building up my silica grit in my body. So that's one of the remedies. I always take my Mag Phos, and then I play with the other ones because I have a homeopathic kit. This kit has 33 remedies. Tissue salt. These are tissue salts. So Dr. Schussler just had the 12 original salts. But what about if a child is zinc deficient, but yet if you give them crude doses of zinc, they get nauseous, they don't want to take it, it hurts their tummy. You come in with zinc chloride in a homeopathic 6x potency to add intelligence to zinc. You keep the child on that homeopathic tissue salt. Then in a couple of months, they'll be able to handle 15 milligrams of zinc, 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams of zinc to really build up that zinc pool in the body. So sometimes you have to start them with a tissue salt if they're susceptible to taking the crude dose and they get this symptom or that symptom.
Fascinating. So I know in our show you were saying everybody on planet Earth pretty much has a subclinical zinc deficiency. And so it's interesting to hear that you've been on Silica for 5 years and the Magphos daily. Would you say there are some tissue salts that pretty much everybody needs, like one or two, that it's pretty safe to say that 99% of humanity could benefit?
Yeah, I really believe that we are really, sorry about the noise in the background. Nothing like living in a city. We're minerally bankrupt. So I said, which mineral? So we look at our symptoms, we look at our hair tissue mineral analysis, and then we try to make educated guesses to what my body needs. So I usually, magnesium is one of my staples in my diet. Like I said, the silica. Then I play with the other ones. If I feel a little back something, I feel like a calcium deposit, I'll take a little calcium fluoride. If I feel the enamel in my teeth, all of a sudden a tooth is a little sensitive, I'll hit the calcium fluoride. So I'm listening to what my body is telling me. So I'm never just stuck in just taking, these four for the rest of my life. Now, some people will prescribe the homeopathic cell salts based on astrologically, because each of the mineral corresponds to your zodiac sign. So I'm a Capricorn, so that means calcium phosphate is my birth remedy. So we're cooking in our mother's womb for 9 months. So I'll be deficient in Capricorn, I'll be deficient in Aquarius, and I'll be deficient in Pisces. That means I'll be deficient in calcium phosphate, iron phosphate, and nat myrrh. Those are the tissue salts of those 3 zodiac signs. That's one way to prescribe, but that's actually my least favorite way, because I always say your body is telling you the story. When we see symptoms, we need to address what the symptom is provoking in us, and how do we come in with the right tissue salt for our symptoms and our lab stuff on the hair tissue. That's what's going to change the mineral profile. That's what I find works the best, when we incorporate our symptoms and our labs and we just kind of put it together to see what does the patient need.
So Capricorn, I'm guessing you mean your sun sign, correct?
Correct. My sun sign. So my sun sign, born in Capricorn. What does Capricorn rule? The bones, the teeth, the spleen. And as a Capricorn, I've broken almost every bone in my body. I've had every tooth, pulled, yanked, drilled, built from here to eternity. I've been devastated with horrible teeth, horrible bones, broke more bones in my Saturn cycle. And, so I entered a Saturn cycle at 56 years of age. I'm 61 right now, so I'm still in my Saturn cycle. I'm on the tail end. But in that Saturn cycle, I've broken this finger. You can see that's crooked. I should have gotten the surgery, but I opted not to get the surgery. So this will always be crooked. So I broke this bone in the Saturn cycle. I broke this bone a couple years later in my Saturn cycle. So I've broken 2 bones and I lost a tooth in my Saturn cycle. But my whole life, bad bones, the first bone I broke when I got punched in the nose. My nose is crooked because I have a broken nose. I got this tooth knocked out when I was young, broke this bone, shattered my knee, broke these 3 ribs, broke these ribs, broke this clavicle, broke this, numerous breaks across the board. So I knew when I went into this Saturn cycle, this would be a challenging cycle for me. And that played out to the 10th degree. And I should have been more prepared. I should have listened to my own advice. I didn't. And so I took the hit of breaking 2 bones and lost a tooth in my Saturn cycle.
That is wild. I was just reminded of what you said earlier, like just listening to the body and being in tune with it. My sun sign's a Virgo. I just turned 37 a couple weeks ago. And I would imagine there's a connection. I have no clue, but I would imagine there's some connection with skin stuff, because acne and eczema was my whole life and just prone to.
You said you're a Virgo, and that's ruled by the planet Mercury. Mercury is communication. Mercury governs the skin. It governs, Virgo governs digestion. So Mercury is a huge skin remedy. So as a tissue salt, then you would go to what is the homeopathic tissue salt for Virgos. I think it's Kali myrrh. I could be wrong. I have to look at my book. I could let you know. I don't want to waste your time in looking for it, but you would figure out which.
On here, I have a little chart. It's like a cheat sheet thing, and it says Kali sulf, eczema, psoriasis, skin balance is the remedy theme for Kali sulf, the seventh one. I don't know if
is that one connected to Gemini, to Mercury? So you want to find out what is the so this book. God, I can't find it. Oh. So this book, this is a deep read. This is George Carey, the Zodiac and the Salts of Salvation. He goes into each remedy and its astrological connection. And so if you're born as a Virgo is Mercury. So you're going to find in this book, Virgos, the tissue salt. I think it's Kali myrrh. I'm pretty sure, but I don't want to say that and be wrong.
Interesting. Yeah. Here. Oh, it is.
Yeah, I don't know if it is. Let's see. Virgo is Kali sulf.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because Kali myrrh on here, it says glandular tonic. That's like it's
so your tissue salt is Kali sulf, and Kali sulfur is that Kali sulf is great for detoxification. It's a beautiful remedy for helping clearing up the debris, the dead debris of the cells. So it's got the sulfur part for detoxification, the whole sulfation in the liver, and then the Kali stands for what? So when you look at K on your periodic table of elements, potassium is number 19, but it's not P, it's K, because K is Kali. Kali is the destroyer. So it has a fire energy to it, but it's a beautiful remedy for skin and for the liver.
That's awesome. That is fascinating. That's a whole nother aspect of all of this, is the whole zodiac.
That gets really into the alchemy, esoteric stuff. And again, I usually don't start there. I will do that more when I've been working with patients for a while. Then as I get to know them and I know their hang-ups, I know their fears, I know their phobias, I know their birth chart, then I'm going to come in with more, with deeper remedies on that astrological alignment. That's powerful stuff. So there's you could prescribe homeopathic remedies many ways. So again, we always stay flexible, and we're always working with the vital force, understanding the laws of similar, the laws of cure, using the minimum dose to provoke a healing reaction in a positive light.
And say if I'm working with a 6X like Kali sulf, and I'm taking it for that astrological reason, would you say once a day is kind of a good cadence there?
If it's a low potency 6X tissue salt, I would say probably 2 doses a day, like 3 pellets twice a day. Because it is low potency and you're working your constitution, your real deficit deficiencies starting in utero. So like I said, you're in that mother's womb for 9 months. You're going to be born deficient in those 3 zodiac signs, that didn't complete the whole cycle. That's why it all comes back to that 3-4 harmonic. So 3 in the 4 gives you the 12, 3 in the 4 gives you the 1, 3 in the 4 gives you the 7. And 7 is God's favorite number. That's the 7 days of creation, and those 7 days of creation are coordinated to the 7 luminaries above. The 7 luminaries above are incorruptible. And so we've hacked the calendar from here to, we've destroyed the calendar with leap years, daylight savings, Julian Caesar. We don't know if we're tropical zodiac astrology. We don't know if we're sidereal Vedic astrology. We don't know what age we're in. But the one thing that hasn't been corrupted are the 7 days of the week. So the day of the week you're born is your constitutional ruling planet. And knowing that, to me, is very, very powerful to know. Were you born on a Tuesday? Tuesday is Mars. So if you have that Mars energy, you may have an iron issue, because the metal of Mars since the beginning of time has always been iron in Mars. So what makes your blood red? Iron. What makes the planet Mars red? The ferric iron. Mars has 3 times more ferric iron on its surface than planet Earth. So Mars has everything to do with that. Mars has everything to do with iron. And so if you want to understand iron, you need to understand Mars. To understand Mars, you can understand iron. So when we see that we become anemic, we become the doormat, we get walked on, that Mars energy of courage and strength and being the warrior, being the hero has been suffocated in us. We have to bring that Mars energy back into us on an energetic level. Then the physical crude iron in you will start working better. So you're not the anemic doormat. Now, if that iron is bioaccumulating, we go into iron overloads. If that iron gets lodged into the limbic brain, could be the amygdala, could be the hippocampus. So if that iron gets into the limbic part of the brain, that's going to oxidize that part of the brain, destroying our compassion and empathy, bringing out the most horrific criminals, the child molesters, the rapists, the serial killers, the worst of the worst. And that iron in utero can go to the limbic part of the brain. We can create a Chucky baby from the very beginning of life, but that's why we want to understand the energy of these metals.
I was born on a Tuesday, funny enough. So
you got that Mars energy, baby. So iron, and then you're going to see if there's iron, there's going to be copper. You always got to understand these dialects. So even on your zodiac, if you're Aries, opposite Aries, so that's a cardinal sign, Aries. Opposite Aries, which is ruled by Mars, is Libra, ruled by Venus. Venus is copper, Aries is Mars, Mars is iron. So there we see that iron copper theme being played out. If you're born in Taurus, the opposite sign in Taurus is ruled by Venus, and the opposite of Venus of Taurus is Scorpio. The Scorpio is governed by Pluto and Mars. So we're going to see that Taurus Venus energy opposite that Mars iron energy. So we always look at the dialect between the yin and the yang, the Mars Venus energy or the Saturn Jupiter energy, etc.
Super cool. Yeah, I like your posts on the pandemic, whatever you call it, that happened, and how the world just got walked on and acquiesced to,
the global sickness campaign.
And you say it's a lot
of charade of this masquerade, and our country was in burnout because we lacked that Mars energy. So we took the knee, we just acquiesced to whatever our master said. We masked up, we rolled our sleeves up, we followed the dotted lines, we didn't go to the nursing homes, we didn't go to the beaches because we lacked that Mars strength and courage to fight the Titans, to stand up to this Leviathan. But when you're in burnout, you don't have the energy to fight the good fight. So you become the doormat, and that's why our country is in burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. My perspective is that, it's been a weakening project for a long time with all of the manufactured wars, and every war is manufactured. And it's like you take the strongest men of the country and send them to die, and you just keep weakening the country with every world war, right? I mean, it's a great strategy.
Yeah, and then you also come in with the incessant drip feeding of these chemicals and these metals, and that's what, this is where I'm getting into these xenoestrogens, whether it's a chemical xenoestrogen like atrazine, feminizing the population, whether it's the metal xenoestrogens, arsenic, lead, mercury, copper, feminizing the planet. So as the alpha males become feminized, we create beta males. These beta males want money for nothing, chicks for free. They don't want to do the work. They want everything handed to them on a silver platter. We have to earn our love. We have to earn our money. We have to earn our health. So we need the energy in our body to create health. So that's why understanding the energy as above, so below, and that's alchemy. That's one of the Hermetic principles, as above, so below, is probably one of the guiding lights in the Hermetic principles, because it's telling us that everything in this universe operates by universal laws, whether you're in the heavens, whether you're in the oceans or on land, everything abides by universal law.
Yeah, I've heard that that pretty much the whole Earth is inverted right now with the poles, and like you said, everything's been perverted besides the days of the week, but the year, how many months in the year? There's supposed to be 13, right?
Yeah, that would be the lunar count. So we went from a lunar count to a solar count, Gregorian to Julian. We don't know what day it is. Even when you look at the numbering system on your calendar, December is the 12th month. But yet, if you run a decathlon in the Olympics, that's 10 events. Sep means 7, but yet September is the 9th month. When you're in the octagon, that's 8, but October happens to be the 10th month. Everything about our timekeeping is off, and that's a control mechanism. And so, like I said, the one thing that hasn't been hijacked, perverted, is the 7 days of the week, and that corresponds to the 7 luminaries, and the 7 luminaries are primal principles, incorruptible by man. So if we're lacking Mars, we need to increase the Mars energy. If we're too aggressive, too belligerent, we need to decrease the Mars energy. This is the beauty of homeopathic remedies, to help bring a balance to the energetics, as above, so below.
Do you believe the theory that because everything's off like that and shifted, that's why most of the world is out of balance, is because of those foundational levels? Everything.
Absolutely. I say that we've been in the Iron Age for the last 2,000 years. So in the Iron Age, just recently, we just shifted into the Bronze Age. So bronze is the Copper Age. That's why iron and copper will be the most dysregulated metals on planet Earth today. And what do we see? Iron overloads, iron anemias. We see the copper overloads. We see the low copper. And that has everything to do with understanding the Venetian themes and the Mars themes to put balance into the feminine and the masculine energy. When those two energies balance out, the world will know peace. We will have peace. We will have love. We will see the earth that it was, we will have heaven on earth. But right now, the controllers are manipulating everything to keep us, confused and dumbed down and, running around like a dog chasing his tail forever and a day.
So many distractions, right? It just seems like the end of this year is like assassination attempts, and then there's like Diddy celebrity stuff with, kids and pedophilia. It's like, I'm always, when I hear about an event, I'm always thinking, well, what are they doing with the other hand, over here?
Yeah. That's why we always have to have that eye of discernment, two eyes to look, but only one eye to see. So that's why it's all about third eye development. And that's your pineal gland. And that pineal gland isn't protected by the blood-brain barrier. The pineal gland has the second largest blood supply, kidneys number 1, pineal gland number 2, but not protected by the blood-brain barrier. And when that pineal gland calcifies, then you lose your vision, you lose your dreams, you become very controllable.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to answer some listener questions?
Sure.
Awesome.
Why not?
Yeah, we had some good ones, so we can bounce around. But this is a good one. Are there remedies to take to heal from vaccinations taken in our childhood? Homeopathic remedies.
Yeah, so that would be in homeopathy, you got isopathy, you got nosodes and sarcodes. So isopathy is you cure a disease by the same pathogen that caused the disease. Now you're giving that disease in potency, like cures like. So if you got sick from a vaccine, that would be more tontopathic prescribing. You got nosodes, which is coming from a sick disease, human or animal. Then you got sarcodes, which are coming from, mostly endocrine glands like adrenaline, cortisol, insulin, pancreatic stuff. So you have the sarcodes, the nosodes, and tontopathic prescribing is coming from never well since a drug, medication, or vaccine. But you have to see when you got the shot. When I got my shot, I couldn't move my arm for 2 weeks. I remember that. So that's poison. I knew that when I was in third grade when I couldn't move my arm for 2 weeks. So you may come in with a tontopathic prescribing, which would be whatever that vaccine was given to you that caused you to never be well since. Then you come in with that exact same poison that was injected to you. You put that in potency, in a homeopathic potency, whether it's MMR or whatever the vaccine may be, the gazillion of these vaccines. So yes, you do. You can come in with a tontopathic prescribing for a vaccine.
Amazing. Question for me too. I meant to ask this earlier. Have you ever played around with flower essences? Because I think that's like an offshoot of homeopathy. And I used to mess around with I think the 5 flower blend and different ones. And I'm a big carnivorous plant fan. I've been growing them for years. So I took, I think it was Venus flytrap or pitcher plants or something for fun. But have you ever played around with those? Or
yeah, that was Dr. Bach was a genius. So he was schooled by Samuel Hahnemann and understood the like cures like. And I don't really use the flower essence because I haven't studied them in detail, but I do use Dr. Bach's bowel nosodes. The bowel nosodes are made, all health starts in the gut. So all these different bacteria and viruses have been potentized in homeopathic formula, and they're called the bowel nosodes. Those are amazing. That's another whole branch of a study and understanding which bowel nosode do you prescribe. So I always have to refer to my books to look at all the symptoms that this bacteria may cause this virus may cause that, this fungus may cause that. So then you come in with the bowel nosode, and especially when you see children that weren't breastfed or were cesarean delivered. So their whole gut microbiome is going to be off. So bowel nosodes can be used beautifully as an adjunct with, homeopathy. It is a homeopathic remedy, but you come in with the bowel nosode, as an intercurrent, possibly while you're doing constitutional prescribing, while you're doing, cell salt therapy, while you're doing mineral balancing. So there's a time and place for absolutely everything. But to answer the question on the flower essence, I know of them. I know Dr. Bach was genius, but I just haven't personally studied the flower essence.
Interesting. I had never heard of bowel nosodes. I just looked them up. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, it's when you start opening up homeopathy, you're going to see the brilliant stuff in homeopathy, whether we're doing acute prescribing, constitutional prescribing, miasmic prescribing, using a nosode, using a sarcode, using a tontopathic remedy. So homeopathy is a lifetime study. Start with the basics. Learn the 12 tissue salts. Learn about 12 or so emergency 911 Mars remedies. That's a good place to learn homeopathic remedies. So when you see someone that has a bump on their head, I saw this happen. I was at my Dr. Murphy's house, and someone came to him with a bump on their head. He gave them a high potency of arnica, and we saw that bump on their head visually disappear within minutes after arnica was taken. So that was a beautiful thing. So arnica is really a great introductory to homeopathy because everyone has an arnica experience where all of a sudden, that ache or pain really healed up pretty damn quickly, especially with the bruising. And the bruising shows the laws of cure. So when you get bruised, initially it's pain, I can't move. Then over the next few days, you're going to see it go from from the deeper layers. All of a sudden, you're going to see that bruise getting bigger and bigger, but that's the healing. That's the laws of cure in action.
Super cool. Jumping around here with a few questions, but this is a good one. How do you mineral balance on a budget?
That's a good question. Everything can be done. If there's a will, there's a way. So, I would say if we're really on a budget, you focus on magnesium, you focus on zinc, you focus on selenium, you focus on keeping the diet clean, and you can go pretty far with just very basic stuff. Then you throw in a few inexpensive tissue salts based on what your body needs. And so you could keep it really minimal if you're really on a budget. So there's always a place, but yet if you are on a budget, that diet does need to be impeccable, needs to be really clean. Then the detox strategies have to be on board. And you can go pretty far with bare minimum stuff because, you can get by with magnesium, zinc, selenium, maybe a digestive support thing, and a couple tissue salts will take you pretty far.
Awesome. Yeah, and even a heat lamp. I don't think I asked you in our last show, but I know like Dr. Wilson was super into the incandescent light therapy, and I'm just now getting back to it. I'm gonna have a show on it here in like a week, but that's such a cool form of light therapy, that near infrared. And especially for people like you and I that are up in the north that experience 4 seasons, it's amazing to use in the winter. It feels incredible.
Yeah, I love I have an old school infrared sauna, and so I don't get too technical of what sauna is. I care that I get in there and I'm sweating like a pig. That's my thing. I don't care. I'm not worried about the extra this or the extra that. It's got to be perfect. I want to know when I get into a sauna, am I sweating? Because you're increasing the heat shock protein. Those heat shock proteins help all your steroid hormones. There's something about heat shock proteins in nuclear receptors. I don't know the exact mechanism, but you're going to see when you look up nuclear receptors, you're going to see heat shock proteins helping the metal to the ligand to the hormone bind in some biochemical pathway that I've yet to figure out, but you're going to see heat shock proteins are important. When you increase the heat, you're killing off infections and viruses and bacteria. That's why when you get an infection, the heat in the body is killing the germ. So you're naturally, when you get into those saunas, you're dealing with these chronic infections. You're moving the blood. You're really percussing your organs, moving the stagnant blood from the deeper organs, moving it superficial to get it out. And that's why I said your third kidney is your skin. So you don't want toxic metals going through your kidneys, but the largest organ, that's where you want all the chemicals and metals coming out. That's why sauna therapy is absolutely right up there as one of the best detox strategies we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would add to that question too. If you're in the US, we have Craigslist, and maybe it's worldwide, or eBay. But I started with Craigslist. My first sauna, I bought like half off or something crazy, or 1/3 of the cost. So you can find a lot of stuff used as far as saunas and health equipment. So that's another avenue.
Yeah, you can even build them yourself if you're crafty. That's not me. But I know some crafty people that can make their own sauna for minimal cost. So there's always a way. And in Chicago, I don't use my sauna until it gets cold. Then I hit it hard. So right now, I'm just focusing on outdoor sunbathing, using that. But as soon as the deep fall and the winter come along, I'm in that sauna baking every day, and I love it. It just feels good.
This is a funny question. What do you think about Samuel Hahnemann being a Freemason?
Who knows? Samuel Hahnemann was an absolute genius, spoke many, many different languages. He had the ability to translate many manuscripts, and that's where he got a lot of information from. So he just wasn't speaking German, his native tongue. He was reading Sanskrit. He was reading, many, I don't remember all the languages, but he was a genius, and he would take the remedy. So his first remedy was cinchona bark for malaria. So he noticed that the cinchona bark had the quinine in it, and the quinine would cause the malaria to kill itself. And so the quinine in the cinchona bark, so he would take the cinchona bark, and potentize that into a minuscule dose of the actual crude dose. And that was your number one remedy for malaria. That was his first remedy. Now, is he a Freeman? Who knows? Who knows? But he was, to me, he was one of the greatest healers to grace this planet. So he holds a high place in my heart because he was beautiful in what he brought to the world. So that's why I don't think he was a 33-degree Mason. But again, who knows? So possibly.
Awesome. How do you approach mold toxicity? Because this is a really common thing in the health community that I see, and people often have to sell all their stuff and move, abandon their home. And how do you approach
just like every other toxin in the body, the same approach. It takes work, it takes time. And of course you gotta, if you have a house that's been flooded and water damaged and you got mold growing in the attic, you got mold growing in the cupboards, you got mold in the bathroom, maybe it's time to move. So yes, you do got to clear up if you have a house that is loaded with mold, but to treat the mold, you build up the mineral grid, you get the portals of elimination in a better situation, meaning you're working on the liver, you're working on your kidneys while you're doing the mineral balancing. And then you can come in with some tissue salt. You can come in with homeopathic remedies for what the symptoms is the mold provoking. Is it the brain fog? Is it the arthritis? Is it whatever the symptom? So that's where you use the homeopathic remedy to address the symptom. So I would address mold like any other toxin, whether it's a metal, whether it's a mold, whether it's a virus, whether it's a bacteria. The innate intelligence of the body, it wants to clear this stuff out. We got to make sure we're not being, sprayed with mold and living in mold environments. So we have to understand our environment, fix that, absolutely. But then you see people just going crazy with this mold nonsense. It's just like, keep it simple, get healthy, build up your immune system, build up the mineral grid, build up the portals of elimination, and then you'll be able to handle when you are exposed to mold, it won't affect you. So, when I was a kid, if I went into a department store and I started smelling these aldehydes from Chanel number 5 or whatever, I would get a headache. Every time I went into a department store, I would get a headache. If I was in that perfume section, it would hit me like a ton of bricks. Those are aldehydes. Molds produce a lot of these aldehydes. So I can go into any store, no headaches today, but I spend time building up the mineral grid so I'm not susceptible to catching cold every time that I'm exposed to this or that. So that's why we always want to build ourselves up.
Yeah, because then you have the reserves to handle you're walking to a Macy's or JCPenney or whatever through that section, right? Because your body will use through will run through the vitamins and minerals in your system, and you kind of use that to mitigate it.
Yeah, so if you have all the mineral cofactors and the vitamin cofactors, when you're exposed to whatever toxin, mold, metal, whatever, your body can deal with it. It can help to eliminate it out of the body, so it's not going to cause a symptom. But we're all so toxic. We all have, so many metals in us. We all have so many chemicals in us. That's why detoxification has to be the mantra of the day. So I know some old school practitioners that don't, do the detox, but they didn't grow up in the generation that we grew up in. So I was born in 1963. So my generation was just on the tail end of getting hit of everything. I didn't get breastfed. I was formula fed. So the older generation didn't have all that nonsense. So they're a little bit more sturdy. They have more adrenal reserves. They may be able to get away without having to do the detox, these old timers, but in this modern day, each generation is getting progressively weaker and weaker and weaker because of the incessant drip feeding of toxin after toxin after toxin, not to mention the mind toxins affecting consciousness. We're being hit from all directions.
Yeah, who knows what they're beaming us with nowadays, right? Some scalar super weapon,
right.
Quantum.
But every problem creates a solution. So that's why we always have to have discernment, and we have to say, they can do whatever the hell they want to us, but it's not going to affect me because I see what they're up to, and I'm focusing on get healthy. And getting healthy is a marathon. It's not a quick sprint. Every decade, we get a little bit healthier, a little bit stronger. The bones get a little bit stronger. Our vital force gets a little bit better. Our dreams come back online. Our sleep gets a little bit better. Our digestion is always improving. And that happens through a healing program, but it's not a sprint. It is a marathon. We got to be patient. We got to have that Mars courage to get through the aggravation without punting and running off to the emergency room. When you get a flare up of a old infection, you're not running to the emergency room, trembling in fear because this infection you think is going to kill you. So then you take an antibiotic. Now we're back to square one. So that's why I say we got, and that's where the homeopathic remedies are genius. When we get a flare up, when we get an aggravation, we come in with a higher potency, homeopathic remedy to put out the fire of an acute infection that flared up on a healing regimen during an aggravation, during a Hertz reaction, during an emotional retracing. We always have things to help get us through, to weather the storm, so we don't quit the program, so we don't go up to the medic, get our gallbladders removed, or take an antibiotic or an antidepressant or something.
Awesome. This is a good question, and one I wanted to dive into a little bit is allergies, because I know there's the mineral balancing aspect to it with the zinc and other nutrients, but from the homeopathic perspective, actually my friend that's building out my new mountain, his girlfriend has year-round allergies, and so I gave her an allergy homeopathic kit. I think it was only 5 remedies in there, but
was histamine one of them?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. It was. I think the brand was like Oleos or something. It was one of the big brands for homeopathy products. But I told her just try this and see if it helps. But a listener asked, how often should you use a homeopathic for an allergen to eliminate the allergy?
If it's acute and they're really every day, they can't breathe, they're clogged up, they got sinus headaches and all that, I would say you take 2 doses every day while you're doing the detox, while you're cleaning up the diet, while you're doing your mineral balancing. And then as the symptoms starts to clear up, then you can decrease the dose to once a day, to once every 3 days, to once a month, as the vital force improves. And while you have these sinuses, maybe every time you're in the shower, you're hitting that neti pot, you're putting that good salt in there, you're putting a drop of iodine in there, it will burn like hell, but you start killing these infections in the sinus cavity. And so, this is why I keep saying the symptom shift, the symptom displacement. So someone that has a sinus infection, they go to the medic, they get the antibiotic, clears up, doctor pats himself on the back, we cured that sinus infection. 2 years later, that green, yellow mucus discharge is now coming out the vaginal canal. So that symptom shift, symptom displacement. That's why we work with the vital force and we build up the body so we can deal with all these chronic infections. But to deal with these chronic infections, you got to clear out these chemicals, you got to clear out these metals. So now the enzymes that require these mineral cofactors will be able to work, so you can get all your detoxification going, to get methylation, acetylation, phosphorylation, sulfation. You can get all those mineral cofactors on board so you can methylate, so you can phosphorylate.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting that when people ask me for solutions for different conditions, like allergies we were just talking about, but no matter what it is, mold, acne, whatever, they're always looking for like specific supplements to take, like this for that. But you always have to remind people, right, that it's you have to do it all. You can't just take 1 or 2 supplements to knock it out. I mean, it could help, like it could help maybe 90%, but to get the 100% results, you need to do it all, right?
Right. And that's what I'm trying to clear this this fantasy that we could take this magic silver bullet and we're going to be cured. That doesn't work. Like once in a blue moon, you may see one remedy, working a magic. You will see that every now and then, but that's not the average. That's a once in a million time you see that one nutrient, that one remedy knock something out, and then you hear them, ranting and raving how great it was, and that's the universal cure for everyone. Most of the time we gotta be diligent. We gotta stay consistent with the program, because like I said, in utero, in decades and decades of toxicity, we've been overcome by the age of toxicity. So we have to become as wise as the serpent, as calm as the dove, as we navigate through our healing. And our healing is a journey. There is no magic silver bullet. It takes hard work, takes consistency, and takes a change in energy. We always have to work for the nutrients. So people say, oh, I don't want to do coffee enemas. I say that you're not going to succeed by saying no. You go into your coffee enema, you go into your sauna with enthusiasm. Know that you have the freedom to do this therapy. You have the ability to do these therapies. So it's a blessing. So we got to raise the vibration in our mindset, knowing that we're doing these to feel better, even though we still are in the storm, even though we're still struggling. But we know there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel if we stay consistent, if we really stay at it.
That's awesome. Put in the work, right?
Yeah. Put in the work, brother. Nothing is handed out on, if I wanted to be a millionaire and I just think I want to be a millionaire, it takes work to be a millionaire. You got to work your ass off. Most people just want everything handed to them. So healing is the same thing. You got to work for your health. You got to create your health. And so that's why we have to have that Mars courage, strength, and mental fortitude to be able to get through any healing crisis, because we will get through it. Now, getting through it can be a challenge. That's why I say it's good to have some trained eyes in your corner to help you navigate that. But not everyone can afford me or afford this or afford that. So that's why you got to educate yourself, because the children did not perish for a lack of faith. They perish for a lack of knowledge. That's why we have to educate. We got to keep dissecting everything. We got to question everything. And no one healer is the arbiter of truth. So whoever your guru is, we still got to understand no one man or woman is the custodian of healing. We all have bits and pieces. So we got to start listening to our bodies. We got to start respecting our bodies. We got to start understanding there's universal laws that apply. And when we have a symptom, be at peace with the symptom. Understand that symptom is trying to teach you something. So the goal is not to just knock it out and kill it. The goal is to understand it, to be at peace with it. Then we transmute that illness into wholeness.
Incredible. I love it. I've been focusing on my nervous system this year, and I think a lot of people have, because of this, the stress of the last 4 years, and not only collective stress. I think we all feel humanity's stress, right, on some level, because we're all connected, but even at an individual level with whatever we have going on in our personal lives, it's a lot of the nervous system's getting hammered. And so I use as many tools as I can to just calm it down and ground out.
Yeah, healing strategies and listening to your intuition. There's going to be some days saying, I don't feel like swallowing a gazillion pills, because I feel like if I'm going to take these pills, I'm going to puke. There's some days that you need to take a day off. There's some days that you need to, give yourself a break from your healing strategies and just be human. So again, we got to understand we want to stay consistent, not perfect. And that's the whole key. Stay consistent, keep working at it, and good things will happen. And, I've seen many people take their health to that next level, just really suffering. And, I think all of us in this healing profession, we're all the wounded healer. And the wounded healer at the Oracle of Delphi, it says, physician, know thyself, physician, heal thyself. First thing we have to do is learn how to heal ourselves. As the doctor learns how to heal himself, then he earns rite of passage to help others in their healing journey. So it is a journey. We need patience. We need to understand it. We need to educate, and we'll get there. But you got to understand there's a force on this planet to make sure that we stay sick, broken, fat, and just like easier to control. Raising the vibration, raising the consciousness happens with getting healthy.
I love it. Well, Robert, it's always a blast speaking with you. Is it backtonaturalhealth.com is the best
Back
place?
to natural health, brother.
I love it. Cool. Well, we'll have to do it again soon. And yeah, thanks so much for coming back on the show. This was a blast.
It's always a pleasure. And if I probably didn't explain homeopathy the way I should have, but if there's questions and comments that come up, I'll be sure to interact and answer anyone's questions.
You did a phenomenal job. And now I'm going to be diving into that astrological aspect. I need to get that book by George.
Yeah, this is a deep read. So love this book, but it's heavy. So, you can't read it all in one night. I've had this book for 20 years and I still read small. I can only read a couple pages at a time, but I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful read.
I love it. Well, yeah, I sent one of your podcasts that you did on another show to my friend that still has his mercury fillings in. He's a local guy here that helps me with my security camera setup and stuff. And yeah, I know it's kind of a broad thing. So I said, just, listen to Robert and hopefully you get some inspiration. Because he's like, I'll just take him out. And I'm like, yeah, do that. But also listen to Robert and do some other stuff.
Right?
Comprehensive. Awesome. Well, stick around as we close out the show. And thanks so much. This was great.
My pleasure, man.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. As I said at the beginning, I love speaking with Robert. I love his perspective and his willingness to learn new information, which is a really rare trait nowadays. I'm excited to keep up my consistency with taking homeopathic remedies, specifically CaliSelf, for my astrology sign. And people have already been messaging me that I have to look into the other planets and my other signs and take more of a comprehensive approach. But we have to start somewhere. And I'm starting with CaliSelf. And so far, I feel great. I'm taking it twice a day. Like Robert said, about 3 pellets twice a day. And I don't know if it's psychosomatic, time will tell, but I am feeling overall better. Although I have been integrating a few things that I'll talk about here in a minute. But if you'd like to explore Robert's work more, it's backtonaturalhealth.com. If you'd like to work with him, highly recommend going back and listening to the show that we did on zinc. I consider him the world expert on zinc. I love his passion for zinc, specifically the information about the zinc fingers that he talks about. It's really interesting. And also Matt Kaufman that I had on the show talking about HTMA, he interviewed Robert. His podcast is called Integrative Thoughts, and I loved the show that he did with Robert Selig, so definitely check that out. My website is matt-blackburn.com. You could read about the CLF protocol that I designed. CLF stands for calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis. And that word protocol has been really exhausted in the health community, and it gets a lot of hate because a lot of these protocols are kind of touted to be the end-all, be-all of healing. And I never said that about my CLF protocol. I've often just said that it's a great start if someone's just getting into natural health, or maybe they've been kind of skimming on the surface of natural health and doing green juice and yoga and whatever. This is several layers deeper, getting into these 3 accumulations that really create brain fog, neurodegeneration, chronic disease. And taking strategic supplements, you can actually start to not only reduce the accumulation of those 3 things, but actually remove them from the body. A few weeks ago, I was on a plane heading to California for my birthday. And every time I'm on a plane, it never fails. Like it was 4 or 5 rows in front of me. There's a gentleman, bald, with tons of age spots all over his head. And it tends to go with balding and a receding hairline. You'll see these brown spots, freckled, all over the head. And that is a sign that the brain is getting hammered by seed oils that person has been accumulating for decades of their life, combined with a severe vitamin E deficiency. And that is a recipe for chronic disease, not only neurodegeneration, but heart disease and all sorts of stuff. So the whole idea with investing in yourself, investing in strategic nutritional supplementation, is that we avoid that potential future, because we all know it's not fun landing in the hospital, all the emotion that goes with that, and dealing with sick and dying family members. It's really not a place we want to be, and it's totally 100% preventable. So circling back to what I was saying about changes that I've made recently, I've been more consistent with the Apollo Neuro device. If you click on shop on my website, it's right there in the A's. It's about $350, and you save a little bit if you use my code Blackburn. And what it does is it sends vibrations using bone conduction into your body, and through an app, and yes, it has airplane mode, you can pick wake up, focus, recover, calm, sleep. I've been just hammering the recovery program, and I've had this thing for many years. I just haven't been consistent with it. So I started tracking my sleep with the Oura Ring, and I'm using it for a minimum of 3 hours a day, sometimes 6 hours a day, sometimes the whole day. And I'm definitely feeling the difference. They've had studies showing that even just wearing it for 3 minutes has a profound measurable effect on multiple body parameters. And then being consistent with it, you see improved deep sleep, improved heart rate variability. I've just felt generally calm in the chaos of life. And this year has been absolutely chaotic for me. And so it's been such a powerful tool to stay grounded and balanced through these wild times. Some other changes I've made, I've been really consistent with the Tromune. That's the cordyceps extract from Transcriptions. So I average maybe a half troche a day, sometimes up to a full, if it's a full day and I'm out and about driving a ton. Feels really grounding for me. It actually doesn't make me tired taking it in the morning and afternoon. Dr. Scott, that I've interviewed, he recommends if someone's just starting to take cordyceps, then start at night because it can make you sleepy. But for me, maybe it's genetics, maybe it's the caffeine that I'm consuming. And I'm not consuming hundreds and hundreds of milligrams of caffeine a day, but I'm consistent with my caffeine use. And I've found that the cordyceps, and maybe it's the combination with the Apollo wrist device, well, wrist or ankle, you could wear it in different spots, even the chest. I felt so grounded and almost like I can consume an unlimited amount of caffeine without ever getting the jitters. And then something that I actually just started back on today is the machine from Steve Scott that I had on the show. So he has a company, Carbogenetics. He has a CO2 carbon dioxide bodysuit. So for both of these, you need a CO2 tank from like a welding store. And then he has a CO2 inhaler, which is a little more affordable than the suit. And he's gone through a few versions of the inhaler. I've tried a few of them. This one is definitely dialed in. It seems bulletproof, really awesome design. You could breathe between 1 and 8% carbon dioxide. And if you think that's a waste product, go to carbogenetics.com. Also listen to the show that I did with Steve Scott and read the science tab, just read around his website. because CO2 actually allows us to utilize oxygen. It's called the Bohr effect. That states that oxygen's binding capacity to hemoglobin is inversely related to the carbon dioxide levels. So that means that oxygen can't get to the tissues without sufficient carbon dioxide. If you're prone to anxiety or brain fog, or you just feel overwhelmed in your life right now, the basic protocol is 10 minutes once or twice a day. I have it here at my office desk. And the hardest part is just finding that CO2 tank, but it's really not difficult. You just go to a welding supply store and purchase one. Maybe you'll have to fill it up once or twice a year. Really depends on how often you're using it. But I am in love with this therapy. It has incredible applications for so much, not only stress reduction that I just touched on, but increased vasodilation, improved lung function, improved blood flow to the brain, improved recovery time from exercise. It also has fascinating research with epilepsy, epileptic seizures, which I've experienced in my family, and it's definitely not fun. And they found in the research, this is the Epilepsia Journal, 5% CO2 inhalation has a fast and potent anticonvulsant action. The present data suggests that medical carbogen with 5% CO2, which is what this inhaler is basically, can be used for acute treatment to suppress seizures in epilepsy patients. So to me, that alone is just wild. And then there's also a lot of research for panic attacks and anxiety using CO2 inhalation. So I've said it before on this show. I'm always shocked with these biohacking clinics and health spas, and they're really just way behind the times. Maybe people just aren't researching as much as I am, but this is a crucial thing to have in every biohacking or health clinic around the world. So there's the latest with things that I'm playing with. Follow me on Instagram. I'm extremely shadow banned there and actually losing followers every month. It's kind of funny. I'm really happy actually about that because I want to be underground. I don't want to be in the spotlight in the health world. But I post there. I do lives once a week on the Instagram account. And Mitolife is on there as well. We post a lot of educational content. Mitolife is my supplement brand. You can find that at mitolife.co. It's MITO, life.co. We're having a buy one, get one sale on the vitamin C right now. That's ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, blended with a berry polyphenol, basically a whole food extract. And polyphenols have a lot of really incredible effects in the body. They actually protect vitamin C from oxidation. And as a prepper, I've looked into this pretty deeply. The storage of supplements, and this is a FAQ that I get from customers all the time. Vitamin C and vitamin E, any antioxidant, basically, if it's protected from oxygen, this is why I'm not a fan of the liposomal liquid products, those squirt bottles. I'm not a fan of bulk powder, even though you save money. I love pills. I love capsules. The reason why I love them is because they're protected from oxygen. Because when a powder is inside a capsule, it is insulated from the environment, which means every time you open the bottle, you're not exposing that powder directly to oxygen. In the case of the vitamin E product that I sell, it's more of a liquid. But just staying on the vitamin C topic, there's research showing that 5 years of vitamin C being stored, it still retains 90+% of its potency. I think the study showed 95% after 5 years. So this is something that I'm definitely stockpiling inside my bunker. And my idea with adding the polyphenols is, yes, they have incredible effects on supporting the heart health and circulation, anti-tumor effects. They're very protective from tobacco smoke, alcohol consumption. They directly feed our beneficial bacteria in our gut. So they're food for the bacteria in our gut, especially if you're taking vitamin C, as I do often throughout the day, small doses. You're continually feeding your gut bacteria. But the cool thing about the polyphenols in there is that it dramatically will extend the shelf life because polyphenols protect ascorbic acid from oxidation. And they also protect from oxidation in the body against reactive oxygen species. So when the time is right, I'll definitely send it to the lab, maybe 6, 7, 8 years from production, and test the potency and report back to you guys. Because as far as I know, it's never been done, the combination of polyphenols with ascorbic acid powder, to see how long the shelf life is. So that is all for today. I will see you guys next Friday. Stay supercharged.